Hey buff dudes and girls, we are completing a lot of body weight videos as of late for obvious reasons. A lot of people are stuck indoors, their gym's closed, they don't have a home gym, they don't have any equipment at home, so body weight can be pretty much your best option. And that's why we are currently on the Buff Dudes Body Weight program. It's been going pretty good so far, but sometimes you want to reach a little outside of just a program and you want to cherry pick certain exercises, and thankfully there's a lot of body weight exercises out there.
Which is why in the next few videos we plan on going through each muscle group and breaking down some of the best bodyweight exercises that you can do. Today we're doing legs.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. Exercise number 1 is squats. Now we would consider squats one of the best bodyweight exercises you can do. It works a lot of different muscles like your quads, glutes, hamstrings, and core. It can also help with mobility in your hips and ankle, as well as strengthen the stability in your knees. And it is considered a very functional exercise as you'll utilize a squat in one form or another in your day-to-day life. You'll want to remember to keep your feet turned out in a comfortable position, make sure your knees follow your toes, and keep a straight and rigid torso. Try to squat down until your hip crease is about the height of your knees. And as you gain strength and mobility, try squatting to a lower depth. Exercise number 2, the squat jumps. Now squat jumps are going to be utilizing power, moving your weight with speed. Working a very similar position to the standard squat, you want to squat down till your hip crease is about as low as your knees, with your feet turned out to a comfortable position and knees following your toes. Once you squat down and reach the bottom position, explosively push upwards by extending your knees, hips, and ankles. This exercise will be increasing the amount of energy consumption needed to complete the movement, meaning you'll burn more calories while performing it, so it's a win-win. Your calves will also be working to help propel you upwards in the jumping motion, which is an added bonus to help develop calf strength. Box squats. Grab anything around the house that will allow you to squat on at a comfortable height. The higher the object you squat on, the easier the exercise will be, as it will decrease your range of motion. Now the lower the object is, the more difficult it can be because it increases your range of motion. The box squat is going to follow the form of a standard squat. Toes pointed out in a comfortable position, knees following your toes, and a straight and rigid back. One of the benefits of box squats is that you have a safety net with something to sit down on, which makes it a little bit easier and more comfortable. One thing to remember, once you sit down, don't completely relax your muscles. Keep tension in them for a short pause and explosively push yourself up to the top position. Now make sure you don't rock forward on your toes to help you squat upwards. Keep your feet firmly planted on the ground and push mid-foot. This exercise will strengthen your quads, glutes, and hamstrings and get you more comfortable with the squat positioning. Pistol squats. Now this exercise is increasing the difficulty quite a bit. It's essentially a unilateral exercise, meaning it's focusing on one side and then moving on to the other. Performing a squat with one leg can be as hard as it sounds, but the benefit is it will allow you to increase the load on your leg, forcing you to push more weight and in turn gaining more strength. It will also work on the stability in your ankle and knee joint because it's kind of difficult to balance yourself on one leg. Using a box will make this exercise a bit easier to perform. Remember, the higher the box, the easier, and the lower the box, the harder. We would recommend to start with a higher box, shortening the range of motion, and as you gain strength, work into a farther range of motion by using a lower box. And that way, you'll not only increase the range of motion, but the strength in each leg as well. Split squats. The split squat will help target one leg at a time, but it will give you an advantage of having your other leg for stabilization. Stagger your stance, much like a lunge position, and keep your torso vertical, flexing your hip and knee joint to lower yourself until your back placed leg knee touches the ground. This will help focus on your quads and glutes in one leg at a time, meaning it's a unilateral motion. Now keep your feet pointed forward with your front placed foot flat on the ground and focus on an up and down motion rather than a forward motion with your body to ensure proper form and there's not too much pressure placed on your knee. Make sure you have a slow and controlled tempo so you don't bash your knee on the ground. Jumping split squats. Now the jumping split squats will be a lot more difficult as you're pushing yourself upwards with enough explosive power to elevate your whole body off the floor. Your goal is to accelerate your body upwards and then decelerate your body to catch yourself in the downward position. But you'll also have to use coordination because once you jump upwards, you'll quickly switch your legs in an alternating motion. This exercise will focus on your glutes, quads, hamstring, calves, and require more energy to complete than a normal split squat, meaning that you're going to be burning more calories to try to complete this motion. Make sure you keep a vertical torso, feet pointed forward, and start with your forward placed foot flat on the ground. Lateral squats. Take a very wide stance and make sure your feet are pointed forward. Squat to one side by flexing in the hip and knee joint as you straighten your other leg. Remember to keep a straight and rigid torso. You'll feel this exercise activating your glute medius and quad muscles, but it's also an excellent mobility exercise for your hips, ankles, and helps stretch your adductor muscles as well as strengthen the stability in your knees. To ensure your ankle mobility, make sure your toes do not rotate outwards as you squat down. Point them forward at all times. Curtsy squats. Now it's similar to a reverse lunge, but increasing the angle of the backwards placed leg. The exercise will focus on the glute and quad muscles. As you place your foot behind you and squat down, try to aim your knee towards your heel. This will make sure you're in the proper positioning. Try not to rotate your upper body as you move your backwards leg behind you. Keep your chest forward and push your hip outward on the working leg, and this will ensure that you feel a nice stretch and activation in your gluteus medius. Lunges. Starting in the standing position with your feet placed about hip width, take a long step forward with one foot until your stance is staggered and squat downwards until your backwards placed knee touches the ground. Push yourself back upwards until you reach the standing position and then switch legs. This is considered a stationary lunge as you are not walking forward, but you'll still have to decelerate your body weight as you step forward and accelerate your body weight to push yourself back to the top position. Keep your toes pointed forward and make sure your torso is vertical. This will focus on your glutes, quads, and calves. Glute bridges. It's time to target that ass. What you'll want to do is lie on the floor with your knees bent around a 90-degree angle and feet about hip width. Push through the heels and extend in your hips and squeeze your glutes at the top position. Now this exercise is great at focusing activation of the glutes, but there'll be some help from the quads and the hamstrings. Now to make this a little bit more difficult and increase the load on each leg, you can perform single leg glute bridges. Now the main point of contact is going to be your upper back and your feet. Perform a slight hold once you extend your hips for that ultimate glute activation. RDL, or Romanian Deadlifts. Now this exercise will focus on activating your hamstrings. Take a hip width stance and feet pointed forward. Now flex in your hips and bow forward until you feel a deep stretch in your hamstrings. Now make sure your back is straight and rigid while you're doing so. Performing the single leg version will take more balance and increase the load in your hamstring, but can be quite a bit more difficult, so it might take some time to master. Make sure you keep your chest pointed towards the ground with a neutral chin. What you want to do is make sure you don't let your torso rotate as you lower yourself down, as this will decrease the tension on your hamstrings and you won't get as much benefit out of this exercise. Step ups. What you want to do is grab something you can step up on. Now remember, the higher the object you step up on, the more difficult it can be because you're increasing the range of motion, and the lower the object, it will be shortening the range of motion, so it can be a little bit easier. So you're going to have to choose what works best for you in the beginning. You can focus on one side at a time or do an alternating motion. Now this is a great way to hit your quads and glutes, and the stepping up motion will focus on your hip flexors and rectus femoris. Now this would be considered a very functional exercise, as we'll usually utilize this motion in most of our day-to-day activities. Hamstring curls. Now this exercise is excellent for isolating the hamstrings. Now what you want to do is lie on the floor with your feet placed on a towel. Pull your heels toward your glutes as you slightly lift your hips up off the floor. Keep a slow and controlled tempo to utilize time under tension. Now this will help ensure your hamstrings will be continually contracted throughout the motion. The main point of contact will be your upper back and heels. The Glute Ham Raise, definitely a favorite of ours. What you want to do is anchor your feet under something, and as you can see, we use the couch. Place your knees at hip width apart and slightly flex in your hips. Now what you want to do is slowly let yourself fall forward and activate your hamstrings and glute to control your descent. Now this will be utilizing an eccentric contraction or negative. Now once you can't hold yourself any longer in that negative, allow yourself to fall into a push-up, and once you're in the push-up position, press yourself up slightly with your arms until your hamstrings can take over in a concentric contraction to pull your body up to the top position. Now this is one of our favorite exercises for increasing strength in your posterior chain, which in this case can be your glutes, hamstrings, and lower back. Sissy Squats. This exercise will help isolate your quads, but can put some extra stress on your knee joints. If you don't have healthy knees or feel discomfort performing this, it might not be a good choice for you. But if you feel good to go and want to give this a shot, what you'll have to do is take a hip width stance and flex in your knee joints as you place your weight onto the balls of your feet. Keep your torso in line with your thighs. Once you feel a stretch in your quads, extend your knees to bring yourself up to the top position and really squeeze those quad muscles. There you go, buff dudes and girls, the best bodyweight leg exercises that you can perform right here at home with no equipment. And if you are wanting to find a bodyweight program, well, you can always look for the Buff Dudes bodyweight program. You can find it on buffdudes.us. And if not, well, now you have all these exercises at your disposal.
And if we missed any of your favorite bodyweight exercises, let us know in the comments below.
And as always, stay safe and stay buff.